Good morning, everybody. This is the breakout session for export finance. So thank you for coming. My name's Scott Sainert. I'm the market president for Rocky Mountain Bank. I'm out of Bozeman. I'll just a little bit about myself and why, I personally have a passion for manufacturing. I've been in the commercial banking arena for a little over 25 years, and in that entire span, pretty much 99% of my banking has been to manufacturers of all sizes and shapes and forms. I was fortunate enough to have actually, been able to serve 5 Fortune 500 companies, ranging from computer manufacturers all the way up to the world's largest beef processor. I actually jumped out of banking for 3 to 4 years and was the CFO for a value-added beef processing plant in South Dakota with plants scattered all over the United States. So a real good education in the manufacturing and a lot of export. So I'm really looking forward to today's panel discussion with our business owners and some partners in the financial arena. So I'm not going to read everybody's biographies. I'll let them give a little background on themselves.
Go ahead, you can read them.
No, go ahead. Phil?
Hi, everybody. My name's Phil Carl, and I work with a company out of Whitefish, Montana called NextGen. And we're the Small Business International Exporter of the Year, Small Business Administration International Exporter of the Year, which kind of, quite frankly, surprised me when I heard about this. Because realistically, this is an interesting panel for me because we don't actually manufacture anything. But we create jobs, and we send services to countries around the world. Actually, we can help companies that do payment processing of all types. In 35 countries around the world, we have offices in 8. So we do export services, and we don't export jobs because we hire people in those countries to do those things. And so anyway, we can get into that a little bit further as questions come. But so yeah, I've been with the company about 2.5 years. I'm the regional director for the 6-state area, starting here in Montana, running to Colorado, west to the coast, and then back up to Washington. So that's a little bit about me.
Good morning. My name is Pri Fernando. I'm the regional commercial banking team lead for U.S. Bank, based out of Missoula. 16 and a half years with the bank. Prior to the banking industry, I was a CPA, and I manage on the commercial banking side the state of Montana and Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we work closely with our international banking partners out of Seattle. And so we have reps assigned to Montana. So hopefully I can give some good feedback on the panel. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Swenson, and I feel like I know most of you, and also looking at the ones that I do know, I have a feeling you know more about the subject than I do. So I wonder if I should invite some of you up to take my place, but instead I'll do my best. So I founded a specialty niche bank called Bank of Montana in 2007, and had founded an investment bank company in 1998 that became the holding company that added the bank charter to it. And the focus of that company has been the same through that 20 or so year period. It's been on jobs creation and finance related to jobs creation, primarily long-term fixed asset investments, and trying to use government enhancement to improve those loans. And so we do a much smaller number of transactions per year than a normal bank by Montana standards or by anyone's standards, but we do a significant volume of dollars. And so my interest in international is that with my experience, again, the audience, I think, has more experience than me in a lot of senses, but my experience has been that international export is a targeted government enhancement field. And so often when we're interviewing clients, we're listening for international business that they might be doing that they don't even think of themselves as being, an international business and or having international hopes. And so I think it's critical to, self-evaluate whether there is an opportunity for international business, or that maybe something you're doing already is international business, and then that opens you up to, for example, the SBA International Guarantee Program, which brings a lot of power to banks to deliver, frankly, a higher risk or a product that might not otherwise be delivered. Same thing with Exim Bank. But anyways, that's my history, and I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you.
Morning. My name is Wendy Kester, and I'm the General Manager of Diversified Plastics Incorporated right here in Missoula. We are family-owned, second-generation family-owned manufacturer, and this is our only location. And we are an exporter, both directly and indirectly, and I kind of agree with Tom. I think most of you in the room know more than I do, but so all I really have to share is our own personal experience in business and what we're trying to do in growing our customer base in the wider world. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mark Bickish with a company called Bitterroot Tool and Machine. We're out of Stevensville, Montana. We're a small manufacturer. We manufacture two products. We manufacture commercial ammunition loading machines. We're just getting started in the international market with that. We manufacture another product called Grain Maker. We have international experience with that product. We have about 30 employees there, a mom and pop operation, and looking forward to some good information today, and glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm Katie Spica. I'm the CEO of Spica Manufacturing. Just recently took that position from COO. We manufacture aluminum work platforms for the aerospace and defense industry. We have quite a few really, really exciting customers lately, so it's a fun business to be in, fun place to work. We sell, depending on the year, just a small percentage up to maybe 25% exports, but they are primarily either to a distributor or agent in a few countries, or direct to primarily governments, foreign governments. So that's my main experience in exporting is doing that.
Great, thank you. One of the things I'd like to point out to everybody, why this is so important, expanding our exports from our Montana manufacturers. Some studies indicate that our average manufacturing wage is about 70% of the national average, and we have close to 20,000 workers in that sector. If we could just get to the national average, that would put over $300 million back into the Montana economy. So that means more houses, autos, education for all of our families in Montana. So that's the primary reason why I'm so passionate about this is, what the overall good to the economy is if we can get to that number. So we'll begin with some questions to our businesses here. What do you see as your primary challenge in expanding your exports? Phil?
Looking at me?
Sure.
Well, exporting for us is a little, like I said, it's a little bit different. So we, the hardest part for, I think, anybody really is dealing with your local, the country you're actually moving into. Right now, as I mentioned before, we have offices, I think, in eight different countries, and we have the ability to expand service and offer services to maybe companies like yours and 35. The hardest part of that, of course, is the regulatory in things, and figuring out exactly what needs to be done in order to be able to facilitate, take, and also make payment in those particular areas. Every one of those countries that we have offices in or service to has different laws on how they allow you to be able to make, take, and or facilitate payment. So that it's the regulatory end of things that can be very, very challenging, and in some cases actually painful.
Great. Thank you. Wendy?
I was just thinking about that. I could probably just go on and on about this question. I would agree, the regulatory aspect of it, the learning curve on that. I think our challenge right now is finding our focus. So what we initially recognized as an opportunity to export directly are water treatment components. And so what goes with that, though, is a lot of those are 2 municipalities, so they're government tenders, and so there's a whole nother layer there that we're kind of stumbling over. Say as compared to, products that go into food processing. And so we've been giving that a lot of thought, and what's easier? Initially, water treatment seemed fantastic because the fact is there's need for it everywhere. And our components are, although they're uniquely made, they're very basic mechanical components that are used, they're the basis, wheels, gears, rollers, they're not going to go away. So anyway, it's kind of finding our focus. We ran into issues with, the intellectual property and then the government rules. Kind of, even though there was a free trade agreement in place with South Korea, we found that their government was kind of protecting their own suppliers. It's tough to break in there. We're learning about how we compete with prices and kind of can we be competitive with the exchange rates and shipping. Our products are kind of heavy. So anyway, the whole thing is pretty interesting to explore. That's pretty much what we're doing with the help of the commercial service and with Brigitte, and then what we'll need to do is be focused in our attempt, because it is overwhelming, the amount of variety when you start hopping country to country. We're too small to manage all that, so we want to be intentional with our efforts. So I guess that would be the greatest challenge.
Great, thank you. Mark?
Well, one of our biggest challenges is regulatory, and that has several layers. One is licensing. We do manufacture a product that's in the ammunition industry, which requires us to be ITAR compliant through the Department of Defense. And so any government or country we do business in, you have to know how that country does business under those rules, regulations, but you also have to know how the United States government does business under those rules and regulations. Product you make, another layer would be each country has different codes. For instance, you have ATEX, you have IECEX, you have EU standard CE. So any product you make has to be to that standard, to that particular country, or to that particular customer that you're doing business with. And then on the other note on that would be financial. Folks doing business with a small business in Stevensville, Montana, whether it be a foreign customer that's in the commercial industry, or if they're in the actual, what we call the mil-spec industry or NATO industry, having the financial ability to buy a product from you and you having the ability to do business with them in that part of the world. The biggest thing for us is information. There's countries, our government makes decisions on a daily basis, and you have to know who you can do business with, because tomorrow you might not be able to do business with them. For instance, Turkey right now is a country that's a challenge for us. You get permitting in that country takes 6 to 9 months right now, and 6 to 9 months from now we may be enemies instead of allies. And so those are our biggest challenges. So we got to work our way through that and get past all those landmines. Those are our biggest challenges.
Great, thank you. Katie?
That's right. I'd agree with most of the panelists here. Regulatory concerns are challenging for us. We have to comply with, the safety standards of the country, the CE regulations. So just learning what those are in every country and making sure we comply is not necessarily hard, but time consuming, especially when it's on a per project basis, and so we can't learn it once and then export millions of dollars over and over to that place. For expansion, a lot of our export sales just come to us direct. They seek us out. But in order to grow them, we would have to have somebody more full-time dedicated to that, and just finding the right person and the funding for that is a challenge so far. So we've been a little bit more passive in our efforts to date. And then shipping, our stuff is very big, very heavy, and it puts quite a premium on our product when it gets overseas especially. And so we need to be able to make a product that's worth that significantly extra cost.
Great, thank you. Pri and Tom, the four people talked about the challenges of regulatory, and I've heard some of the financing. Pri, what are some of the challenges or stories you hear from your clients and how they navigate the export world?
You bet, Scott. What I hear is Mark mentioned regulatory requirements in different countries, and that's one of the things we hear the most. And it's because when they start doing business overseas, they don't really understand all the regulations, and it's good to have someone who's representing that country, like a country rep, that can help them through that process. And the other one is really when you're doing business, I heard shipping, payments, and collections, right? So most of the businesses in Montana are small businesses, and they really focus on running their business, and you add all of these things on top of that, it's you need 5 other people to help you with the process when the same person is wearing 5 hats. So those are some of the challenges that I hear when we deal with businesses here in Montana.
Great, thank you. Tom?
I think the most common problem I run into is related to financing the expansion of export business, and more specifically, foreign located collateral or foreign oriented collateral. And so I think there are some solutions to that. For example, like I mentioned, the SBA International Guarantee Program, United States Export-Import Bank, export line of credit, and also a facility designed in the U.S. to export product can have special enhancement from those government agencies. But anyway, it creates in some occasions a very difficult problem, and so many times need to use those international guarantees as essentially a replacement of collateral. On rare occasion, we're able to work with a company that's strong enough that their cash flow can be solely relied upon, but it's a real challenge.
Okay, great, thank you. So, back to the business panelists. So, have you utilized any of the federal or state agencies and the things that they can help businesses expand their exports?
Starting with me again?
Sure.
I would say at this particular point, no, the federal end of things has not really been something that NextGen has taken advantage of. And the state agencies basically have given us some advisement on some of the things that we can work with. But no, I would say by and large, we have 2 different divisions in our company. We have a United States sales organization and our operations, and we also have a international operations group. As with any other company, as Pri mentioned, when you start working into international other countries, what you're looking at is when you start into it, you may start off small. And we're like any other business. When you're doing business there, you have to start looking ahead of time to find a partner, right, who can help you incorporate in that country maybe if you need to, help you understand the regulations of all those different types of things. And so if you can find that help ahead of time, that can be very, very helpful to you to overcome a lot of those hurdles. You have to be able to handle collections, you have to be able to handle payment, you have to be able to do all those types of things. But in some of those instances, even though we are exporting those services, we're also a consumer of those services. And so we have fortunately had good partners in a lot of the countries that we work in and in the places that we have offices. We have people on the ground who, as I mentioned before, are actually, I think maybe I didn't, but we're nationals that actually have live and breathe there, so they understand the business climate. They understand what needs to get done in order for you to do business there. So we've been fortunate in that and being able to expand into those different countries.
Great, thank you. Wendy?
So yes, we have used several of the services offered by both the U.S. Commercial Service and the state Commercial Service. We have utilized the Gold Key service in Taiwan and in South Korea to help us vet potential partners. And we really like that. It was nice to have the full weight of the U.S. government making you authentic. That was awesome. Yeah, it validates you as a business, and it was really easy, and they held our hand through the whole thing, and we learned a lot from that. We've also used the initial market check. We just did that in Germany last week, in fact. I sent my sales and marketing director along with one of my technical salespeople to a trade show there. And prior to that, we asked the Commercial Service for help and, again, just surveying the market for us. Is there even any hope for us over here? Is it crowded with competitors or regulatory issues that we might run into? So that was also very helpful. Yeah, we got exactly out of it what we wanted. From the state, we have utilized the STEP grants. We applied for those and received help twice now, at least, actually more, maybe 3 times. We used it when we went on the trade mission with the governor's office to Taiwan and South Korea. We wanted to translate our marketing materials, and that helped us fund that effort. Because honestly, what are we going to do with this stuff? We're not going to translate too much of our stuff into Mandarin Chinese until we get some more customers. So that was really helpful. It's one of those barriers. We might not have done that on our own. But having the grant money helped us do that and be prepared and look good in those meetings. And then we took them along, all that marketing information again, when we went to a trade show in Singapore. We also applied for grants for travel and for our trade booth there, and we received help there. And then we've applied for another round of grants this year and utilized some of that money to go to the show last week. And then we're hoping to receive another award to exhibit again in Singapore at the International Water Week. So we have found those programs to be very helpful, very easy to use. The state and the U.S. Commercial Service over in Helena, super helpful. So.
Great, thank you. Mark?
So we haven't used any of the financing options yet available. We're just now exploring that for our business. We have used the state for travel and for doing trade shows, and we found that very helpful, very easy to use. It allows us to go to places that maybe we never thought about being before, and so it helps offset some of that cost, allowing you to get there to represent your product and to learn that market. And so we found that very useful. We're just now getting in for our one product. We just did our first international transaction last year. And so we're trying to get more understanding and more accessibility to financing for our foreign customers. And so we're pushing forward on that, and we see the advantages of having that for sure, absolutely.
We're like Wendy and Diversified. We used it all and benefited from it all. We've done trade missions, gold keys, market research. Every partner we have has been vetted through the commercial service. We've done the grants, so we've had quite a bit of funds come back to us in support of the trade shows, travel. We haven't done the translation, but pretty much all the other grants you can do. We ask for help with shipping questions and challenges. I was making a list of everything we've done. They're kind of almost on speed dial entities. There's just so much help out there. The one that isn't helpful to us is the insurance, export insurance, because it doesn't, unless it's changed recently, it doesn't work for selling to foreign governments. Not really a risk there anyway, but that's about the only resource we found that hasn't been incredibly valuable for us.
Great, thank you. Pri and Tom, back to the banking side of it. And Tom, you brought this up a little while ago on the financing of especially offshore assets, inventory, equipment, which, in my 25 plus years has been a challenge forever, as far as I can tell. So what are some of the other risks that the two of you see in regards to clients financing export activity?
On the credit side, Scott, a lot of the exporters in Montana tend to be smaller businesses, and there's a certain segment, those are startups as well. So from an underwriting standpoint, I think we use the SBA for those types of loans. But generally speaking, if it's an established business and they've been in business for more than 2 years, and the loan amount is less than $500,000, we have a centralized underwriting hub that can approve those loans in 48 hours. In terms of, when you have assets overseas, we work closely with our global trade services people out of Seattle. So if your customer is paying you with letters of credit, sometimes you can leverage those letters to provide credit to your customer for their manufacturing and production purposes.
Thank you.
You bet.
Tom?
Scott, I don't think I have much to add to what Pri said. Carry on the point on letters of credit, that the issues that I've seen are different experience level in the United States legal system and payment system versus international, and the challenges that you run into with 3 copies of bills of lading and having the exact terms met, and that within the 4 corners of the contract, if you haven't covered what's in those 4 corners, whether you did a good job or not, that you might not get paid. And so those are the kinds of pitfalls for international sellers. Other challenges that we've seen are where get international receivables insurance, which is an awesome product that I think should be used within reason as much as possible, but then run into at times it can create a false sense of security in that if there's a product complaint or again back to the letter of credit, or the terms of that sale, if they aren't met, that no one is going to insure the lack of delivery on time or the quality that's expected, and so we've seen some companies get into some serious problems related to that, and delayed payments or destroyed materials in shipment, and other challenges like that.
Okay, great. So speaking of financing for our businesses here, Katie, how does Spica go about financing some of your larger export transactions? If you get a company that you haven't done business with, how do you go about financing those large transactions?
Well, we keep it pretty simple. We're small and don't have to deal with it a ton of the time. So if it's somebody new, we do a bit of checks on them if we need to bring in somebody like the commercial service or somebody else to help. We do. Typically, we'll ask for a certain percentage down and another percent, the remainder before we ship. If they're an unknown customer, if they are one of our partners, we just have our standard terms with them. And if it's government too, usually they're pretty good about paying 30 or 60 days. So we, besides, getting our money up front with the ones we don't know and have a relationship with, just works pretty normal for us.
Okay. Mark?
So we're pretty much the same way. We require a certain amount down before we start, and then we require full payment before shipping. So the challenges with that is it limits who you're going to do business with. So if you have any, say, in the commercial part of it, a government, no problem. Bigger companies been around for a lot of years, no problem. They don't have issues with that. But if you have a smaller company, folks like us that have dreams just like us, they want to grow their business just like us, it's a challenge for them. One, it's a trust issue. How do I send half of, say that you got a contract for $1 million, how do I send $500,000 to a small business in Stevensville, Montana, and know that I'm going to get that product delivered? So then it takes you into dealing with letters of credits and dealing with that, and that's a whole other set of challenges. That's why we're pursuing the financing options to make it easier for them people to do business with us in this part of the world. And that's why we see the advantages of that. But that's how we do business now.
Great, thank you. Wendy, how about Diversified?
Initially, we were requiring payment before shipment, prior to shipment, and but also initially, the direct exporting that we were doing, the orders were small. And then as they got bigger, then I sought out some help if the customers were asking for terms, because they were high dollar amounts. And so we did secure short-term credit insurance through the XM Bank, and that's what we utilize right now, a multi-buyer policy. Each customer is individually screened. They have to submit their financial statements and kind of go through a process to get approved for the insurance. But if you don't use it, you don't pay for it. So you only pay the premium when we've made a shipment. If we don't happen to get an order that month or that quarter, there's no premium to pay. And that has given me a lot of peace of mind. Because again, if it's a small dollar amount, you can take the risk, but when you start to get into the high dollar, at least for us, I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. And we might have lost those orders because, they, just like every business has cash flow to consider. So anyway, that's been a really helpful. We did check into letters of credit. It wasn't a tool we need right now. There may be a time where that's more suitable, but for now, the credit insurance worked really well.
Great, thank you. Bill?
Yeah, we next intent is to work with partners. We have, for instance, we are a processor for a company called Elevon and also First Data. And in, for instance, England and across Europe, we have they have a separate division. Most of the product and machinery, if you want to call it that, point of sale type systems are shipped from Elevon in England, for instance, to those different customers that we have. And also we utilize the tools of the trade there. Here in the United States, there's quite a bit in our industry where people will lease things and use it as a capital expense. In England, for instance, it's very, very common for people to lease products for those types of solutions, the solutions that we offer, the machinery that we need, their point of sale system, their credit card terminal. It's a very, 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 very common thing for them to utilize that type of financing solution. So we're probably in many cases not dealing with something maybe like the expense that Katie might be dealing with the workstations and things like that. So they're probably not that large of an expense. But again, we utilize the partners that we have to make that available, the products and solutions available to the customers that we service in those countries.
Great, thank you. To the payment side of the business, and this is really for all the panelists, I'm curious, and so it's really a yes or no, but then I'm gonna ask for a follow-up. When you're receiving payments from your overseas clients, do you utilize a foreign exchange and get paid in US dollars, or do you deal with the foreign currency that your customers in? And if you do, could you explain to the audience the benefits that you see of using a foreign exchange type of product to receive payments? And if you don't, why? And maybe what's the perception of not looking at the foreign currency side of it?
Since you're looking at me, you're gonna.
I'm going to start with you again.
Because I know I'm the guy right between everybody else. So yes, actually, we do have the ability in the different countries that we service to do business in their currency. I spoke a little bit about this earlier before the session, was some of the problems with dealing in the different countries is you're dealing with dynamic currency conversion. You're also dealing with wire transfer fees if you're doing business over there. You're dealing with exchange rates. So we have the ability for you, even if you're from here, but have an office there or you're doing business there, to help you do business in British pounds or euros or whatever you like. We operate in Mexico, we operate in Canada, across Europe. And again, you want to buy souvenirs in Vatican City, we can help you there or sell them. So those areas we're able to actually work with the current currency so that we can avoid those exchange rates. We can avoid the dynamic currency conversion. We can avoid those types of things. And then not only that, but you can also do business between those other countries. The hardest part of dealing with things like that is, for instance, and I'm sure Pri can probably testify to this, is if you're signing up a merchant in the United States, we do paperwork. You tell me where your bank account is. We finish the paperwork up. You go to get approved, and then we start putting money in your bank as you make sales. There's one step in Mexico that's a little bit different. We do the paperwork, and before we do anything else, we join hands and we walk down to the Banco de Santander, and we open an account for you there because that's the only bank that does credit card processing in Mexico. A little bit different, right? So is that a monopoly? Well, I don't know what they call it in Mexico. Here we would call it that. But, it's just different. And in England, you can't debit someone's account. You have to have somebody else do that for you. In Canada, most of the cards up there, a lot of the processing up there is done on Interact debit cards. So the exchange rate is different. So there's all these different things in it. Yes, we will utilize those to the merchant's benefit. And there, if you're exporting, if you're importing, if you're doing business from England to the United States or from England to France. And so we can take a look at that and work with you and say, okay, well, the British pound is doing very well against the dollar right now, so keep some money there. And so we kind of have that flexibility of helping you and helping our merchants and helping ourselves also, and looking at those types of things and how that particular transaction or how that financing and we don't want to, in other words, we don't want to make you a bunch of money over there and by sending it back here you're losing. So it depends on what your goals are and how we can help you meet those goals and surpass them.
Great, thank you. Pri, how do you help your clients navigate the world of foreign exchange?
You bet. It's a tough one because when you talk to some of the businesses, especially in Montana, they feel comfortable just dealing in US dollars, right? But you may actually be leaving money on the table by doing that because when you think about a production cycle, the exchange rate today may not be the same exchange rate 3 weeks from now or 1 month from now. So depending on the size of the business, you may want to have some type of hedging strategy in place. So that's a hedge against what type of margin you want to make on your product. That's one aspect. And then I think I heard from Wendy and Mark how they deal with down payments and things like that. And the problem with that is, you're also doing business with, there's a trust factor for your customer as well. How do I send you the down payment? Is there a guarantee to get the product back? So that doesn't always work with all of your customers, especially when you think about the market that's out there. 95% of your market is outside of the United States. So if you want to expand your business, you have to kind of work with letters of credit. And these days, banking is right here, right? So you can have, if you have the right platform, you can probably monitor when the product is shipped and when you get paid from your letter of credit. So, and I've also talked to small businesses that actually trusted people. They sent the down payment, then they shipped the product, but didn't get the balance of the payment back. So there are issues like that, and you really are dealing with other countries and different business practices. It's not the same as doing business in the US.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Candidly, we've had very limited exposure to payments in other than US dollars, so almost exclusively. So where we have seen conversion challenges and exchange rate issues are many times exporters will also be buying a complementary product in another country that goes with their sale, and so they'll actually be wiring money out and experience exchange rate risk in doing that. And then also, and sorry if I'm off subject, but international operations like NextGen has, where you get financial statements from divisions and operations in other countries, and so you're trying to figure out what the financial statement says, not only in currency but the language and presentation of financial statements, because at least with a number of our clients, they're being those statements are being originated in those foreign countries, so it makes it more difficult for us to figure out what's going on, candidly. But anyway, so that's our exposure to exchange risk.
Great, thank you. Wendy, how about you?
Yeah, so far we have all of our sales in US dollars. So, I mean, the risk is in most ways right now on the purchaser in that regard. It's something that would have to be a strategic decision as we move forward. If that was a way to gain sales, to offer, that. That would require some learning on our part. I'm a lifelong student, so.
Great, thank you. Mark?
So same here. All of our sales so far have been in US dollars, and we deal via wire transfer, and so we do have limited exposure to all that. But we do find, and I'm interested in hearing on the exchange rates, makes sense for us, especially in the European market where the euro is worth quite a bit more than the American dollar. So it seems like it's bringing more business from that part of the world to us because of the exchange rates. And how to strategize around that to be more successful in that, we'd be interested in hearing that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Katie?
Well, unlike the other ones, all of our customers so far are fine dealing just in the US dollar. That's going to change one day, I know, as we continue to grow, and we'll have to learn all about it then. But right now, we don't get any pushback for asking for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll just have one more round, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And this is really just a general question for the group as we go down. Basically, just what advice can you give to those in the audience and in this room for navigating the export world, from the businesses, expanding your exports and building your business, from the financial world, advice you can give to people when they're looking to go into a new country and financing those exports?
Thanks, Scott. Well, as Pri said, banking is on your phone, right? And pretty much now it's a world out there where convenience is king, right? And so no longer is it necessarily cash is king, but convenience is king. So realistically, when you're looking at this and if you're already exporting and you're running into things that are causing you pain, then it's time to find someone out there who can help you. And I'm not necessarily talking about NextGen. I'm talking about if you're doing enough business in another country, you can Google it and find out who can help you set up a corporation there, who can help you get insurance there, who can help you deal with regulations there. When it comes to payments, you can work with somebody like us. But again, it's all those things, and it really is. It comes down to when does it become, like Katie mentioned, at some point you got to look at this, because at some point you're gonna look at it and say, well, it makes more sense to do business over there in this currency and work with it. And the way the global economy is working now, I'm sure there's going to be huge changes continue to come. And so again, for me, in dealing with people like in this type of industry and moving into foreign, it's like, when does it start causing you pain? When it starts causing you pain, it's just like anything else. You get pain in your foot, you go to the podiatrist, right? You start working with pain in the exporting business, you find somebody to help you through those things, and the world's at your fingertips. So that would be my advice is, when you start feeling that, go to the doctor.
That's a great.
Find the person to fix it, so.
Pre.
Yeah, I would encourage the audience to look at doing business overseas. It's risky, but it's a large market that's out there. But if you are willing to do that and willing to take the risk, I think you should be well informed, and you have to deal with partners that have pretty good knowledge of how to do business in a specific country. And I think it's really important these days to have real-time information, right? Because when you think about doing business overseas, there's a pretty significant time difference. If you're doing business in Japan, for example, there's a 15-hour time difference. Australia, most of Asia is probably 12 hours. So you have to be connected and be well informed, because I think it's very rewarding. There's a pretty large market that's out there if you do it right.
Great. Thank you. Tom?
I think there's at least a couple of approaches to expanding international business, and one is that we see more and more of is digital-based, internet-based business that many times they're doing a lot of international business, and like I say, they don't even think of themselves as international business people. And so as Phil was saying, if you run into financing problems or need capital related to that, you can utilize government programs that want to emphasize that exportation. The other thing, and I'm trying not to sound like a banker here, but is that if you had an old school approach to business, I would say rationally you would look at international business and say, do I have enough demand for my product in Missoula, Montana? If I do, and it meets my family's needs and my goals, well, then I should just stay in Missoula, Montana, and that'd be great. If I don't have enough demand in Missoula, Montana, maybe I should go to throughout Montana. But anyway, that which of course we all know, but that rational approach to business of, is there a rational reason why I'm going overseas? Are they going to pay me more money? Have I exhausted my expansion efforts in the U.S.? And is there some compelling reason why I want to go overseas? And like I say, sorry to sound like a banker with that, but and that natural evolution of business usually empowers someone to access finance to do the expansion. So you start doing 10% of your sales internationally, and you rely on your domestic sales and manufacturing and collateral to leverage that expansion. And then the next year maybe do 20%. And so I think that if I was candidly giving advice to a small business person, I would say international probably wouldn't be what I'd try on the first day at work, unless it was a digitally based business. But grow into it, examine what level of risk you're willing to take. And so, if you want to make the decision to move away from letters of credit and those sorts of things, just like any business, you say, how much of my profit or how much of my retained earnings am I willing to risk? And so maybe your initial measure is 1 month's worth of profits. I could take a chance, and if I lost that, that wouldn't, take my birthday away. But anyway, those are the kind of thoughts that I would go through on international business.
Great, thank you. Wendy?
This should be really fun. I just have permission to talk here. Give my advice. I guess my advice, and to speak to the reasons to export, our main reason is to diversify our customer base and to, and in that way, actually stabilize our business. And yeah, most of the opportunity isn't inside the U.S. So for me, especially, it's the size of the game that makes this really interesting. But my advice to you would be to utilize the services that are available with your taxpaying dollars. That's been hugely helpful to us to utilize the U.S. Commercial Service and the Montana Commercial Service. Even down to if things like which trade shows they support. I mean, that's a clue that those are going to be shows that have a lot of international participants. And you can just go to a domestic one. That's how all of our exporting started, is we were clueless, but we accidentally got customers overseas by exhibiting at an international show in Chicago. So that would be my advice. It's worked well for us.
Great, thank you.
So the reason to do international export or business, like you said, 95% of business is done outside of the United States. And so that's a big wide world. These people want our products. And so we in the United States, proudly, we make really good stuff. And a lot of the rest of the world want that stuff, or they want to do business with us. And so at the end of the day, I always take it as this. There's people just like you and I that want to do business here with us in Montana. Why not? It's a big wide world. And so why not do business with these folks? The reason most people don't, for us, it's fear, which is just simply lack of knowledge. And so my advice to you is get as much information as you can about where you do business, from the regulatory side to the just to the simple fact of how how they talk to one another, how they address people. Learn it. We got to internet. There's so much. We're in the information age. There's so much information. If you can't find it, find somebody who can, and partner up with those folks and learn from them, and get the knowledge that you need. Get down here to things like this and learn as much as you possibly can. And once you start, it's not as fearful as you think. And there's a lot of help available to us. But that would be my reasons for, and that's reasons why we haven't in the past. So.
Great, thank you. Katie?
I'd mimic just what these two said. Use your resources. You don't know what you don't know until somebody tells you or you find out the hard way. So there's lots and lots of people and groups that can help you figure out how to do it. It's always worth the cost, even if they tell you don't do it. So don't try to go out by yourself. Find somebody who can help and let them get you over the hard steps.
Great, thank you. We're getting close to the end of time, but I would like to open it up for questions from the audience.
It's not really a question, it's just a comment. I know Katie was speaking to some challenges she had with insurance. I can't speak directly to the insurance. It might be certain policies that have exclusions, but I would suggest if you are thinking about going overseas, getting with your agent for a stock throughput policy, which is a specific policy that insures your goods in transit, whether you're selling to somebody or importing some goods, things that you're working on that you're afraid you might not get. Also, you can have your insurance policy. Different carriers will provide legal assistance in that country opposed to legal from the U.S. defending you in Japan or wherever it might be. So just a couple things on insurance.
Great, thank you.
My biggest challenge is, I don't need the thing, I'm really loud. And I feel command voice here, but my question is about freight. Because yours is heavy, mine's bulky, because I end up with things that are 80 inches long and 30 inches wide and 6 inches thick. Okay, that's one. So when I ship that pallet of those, I have a nose of a truck. So that's my biggest. How do you handle freight overseas? Two ways. One, you talk about the insurance is one aspect, but what's it? getting freight out of Montana to a boat ain't cheap. Is there anybody have any experience with best modes, best things to think about?
So I'll take that one. We use an agent out of Pennsylvania that does a lot of international shipping, so they're very familiar with domestic and international. My challenge on that is make sure your dimensions are the same as their dimensions. For example, I was shipping product into Romania, and I've got the width and height backwards, and so when they got the plane out of Chicago, they didn't have the right plane. So they had to delay that freight, had to go through Frankfurt, Germany on a truck, 12, it was a disaster. So just make sure, communicate with them. Are we talking about the same stuff? Bulk is not a problem. You with the right people can get it anywhere in the world. Most of the time you can have any of your freight anywhere in the world in 48 hours. And if you need to go on a boat, you can have it there in less than 2 weeks. But there are agents that we use that are very, very compatible on this, and they'll guide you right through that. And they also handle the insurance all the way through if your agent does not.
I have a follow-up. Okay, because mine's big and bulky, I don't mean to be such a noisy guy, but yeah, big and bulky. Has anyone ever entertained the idea of shipping component and my big bulky part is foam? Okay, the rest of my components are smaller. So that to arrange a sub-assembly at your ship to and have them acquire the second part because it's an international product.
So what are you saying? You're saying that you'd send it in pieces and have your shipper put it together at that point?
At my distributor.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Well, hang on, back that up. Your distributor, where it gets to your distributor, then they can put it together? Well, if they're your distributor, they should know your product, right?
Right.
They should know how to put it together.
Right. Well, I'm not worried about that, but together I can instruct that. I would never entertain that idea to get out to overcome the freight issue.
I see. So I'd entertain the fact, depending on what how big it is, maybe go with the container, keep it all together. Biggest thing you don't want to do is ship in pieces if at all possible. Try to keep all your product together if at all possible. We ship in crates, and so we make a crate. They come in, pick it up on a forklift, goes on a semi, and it's rather big. But keep it all together. That's my advice.
The freight forwarder and customs house broker here from BGI, by the way. Sorry. Freight forwarder and customs house broker here from BGI. I was looking around to see if I saw him here, but you really need to have at least 1 or 2 conversations with him to figure out how you can get the best freight. There are occasional options to take advantage of backhaul coming out of Montana, because one of the issues is that you're paying to bring in an empty container a lot. So that's one of the things. But you talk to them and they know the frequency that you're shipping and what you're shipping, they can help you figure out how to do it most economically. Yeah.
I can say just a little bit more on both of those questions. We are recommended to work with a freight forwarder. We use Expeditors. I don't know if they're better or worse than anybody, but they work well for us. Very helpful, and they take care of everything. So we don't have to worry about paperwork, insurance, anything. It just gets on the truck or the crate or the container and heads overseas. In terms of shipping it disassembled, we've also looked at that, and we looked at it actually from a tariff perspective rather than a shipping cost perspective. We haven't done it yet, but I think it probably would be worth looking into. If you could really save on shipping costs and you trust the people to put it together, you might benefit in a couple ways.
Might change the playground for regulatory too, because it'll be assembled in the country. of
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Different model.
Great. Any other questions? Comments? Yes.
Thank you. I'm Sandra with the Export-Import Bank, and I do business development right here in Montana. And I just wanted to clarify to Katie's comment about Ex-Im Bank insurance not being available for public sector buyers, government. That's actually incorrect. We are open in most countries for both private and public sector. I would say maybe 80–90% of the activity that Ex-Im Bank does under the insurance program involves exporters, small businesses like you, selling to private sector buyers, but a few do sell to government entities. What we cannot do, though, is supporting sales to military buyers. So even though your product is non-military, it's not lethal, the fact that you are selling it to, say, an Army base or a Navy base abroad, that would be excluded from coverage.
Sure. Thanks for that clarification. That is, we're selling to military, so it's good to know that non-military doesn't face that barrier.
You still qualify for the SBA International
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Thanks. I was just wondering, nobody mentioned warranty work and repair work and your challenges, and I was just wondering if you've had any issues with that and how it's impacted things like pricing and contracting and those kinds of things.
All right, I better answer that one. So yes, we have had issues with that. So really goes back to, again, the amount of clear communication. So we've had some language barriers. We have an extremely technical product that we're building to spec. That's been just difficult. So engineers, talking to engineers in a different country, it doesn't matter that they're both engineers, they utilize their technical terms a little differently. So we've had instances, fortunately nothing major, and we've done what we always do here, is we back up our product. So there's been instances where they've had to adjust something, machine bore size or something locally, and we've covered that, even if it's our customer's fault. Customer is always right. So fortunately, we haven't anything major, and it's always revolved around that, the tiny little nuances of the detail in what we're building for them. So I think they still have been happy with us because we backed up our product. But it is challenging because you're not going to ship it back. Costs way too much. That'd be a big losing game. Plus the time, because they're usually installing it into, there's some sort of maintenance project going on that they're on a timeline. So, yep, that's been our experience.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we've had some warranty experiences internationally. One of the worst I remember was just something got forklift poked in transit and broke a little pneumatic cylinder under the deck, and we got the call one day, and by the next afternoon we were on a flight to Japan to fix it because it needed to be perfect for our customers. Most of our issues, if not all, have been shipping related. So we've just learned to be very, very careful about how you package something for export, because it's going to cost you much, much more to fix it if you don't do it right the first time.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, I would like to thank the panelists today. That was a great discussion. I would encourage any of you that are wanting to expand your business into the export arena, there are a huge amount of resources here today. Brigitte's here from the World Trade Center. We've got MMEC, SBA, Department of Commerce. If you want to talk about foreign exchange, my friend Michael Bork is here from Los Angeles today. He can tell you everything you want to know about foreign exchange. And I know I'm missing a ton, but I'd like to thank the Chamber and SBA for inviting me to moderate this panel, and please enjoy the day. Take advantage of all the resources, and again, I'd like to thank our panelists.